Hey boys and girls, it's Mrs. Bartell. I'm here to kind of go over lesson 7-3, so unit 7, lesson 3, and you were supposed to be locating fractions that were less than 1 on the number line. And remember in the Bartell class, I always like you to draw a fraction bar above the number line. So I'm going to try this. We'll see if it works or not. It's not going to be perfect, boys and girls. Okay, so I'm going to draw my fraction bar for one whole here. So they want us to find 1/4. That means you're going to divide the one whole into 4 equal pieces. So remember when we were practicing doing this in class, the first thing we did was we took the whole and we divided it in half. So we found the middle. So we divided it into 2 pieces. And then we discovered that if we divide each half in half, we get fourths. So we're going to look at each half and cut it into half. And then we will get our fourths. Now, right here, they want us to find 1/4. So 1/4 would be right here. So we have 1/4, 2/4. And then in class, we talked about how 2/4 is equivalent to 1/2. It's the same thing. Here we have our 3/4. Let me make that the right way. 3/4. And then right here we have our whole, which is really 4/4 because we have 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4. And all of those, when you add them, all 4 1/4 equals 1 whole. So right here they wanted you to find 1/4, and that's it right there, boys and girls. So if you're in Mrs. Schmidt's class, I believe she has you do something like this. Pretty sure she has you do, although that's reversed, it would flip over onto the top. But here is 1/4 right there. Okay, so now we go down to the next problem, and it was 1/8. So once again, we are going to have to figure out how to cut this into 8 equal pieces. And if you're in the Bartell class, we did, when we made our fraction bars, we figured this out together. We started with half, right? We found our half. Then we went ahead and found our fourths once again. So we have 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, and 4/4. But this doesn't want us to find fourths, it wants us to find eighths. So now we need to figure out, instead of 4 pieces, we need to double the amount of pieces to get 8. So to do that, we're going to cut each fourth in half. So here we go with each fourth in half. So now we have 1/8, 1/4, which is really like 2/8. Maybe I'll put it on top, even though I didn't draw the fraction bar here. I'm running out of room, if you can see. So 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8. So 1/2 has, now we have 3 names for it. We have 1/2, 2/4, and 4/8. And they are all equivalent, and they all equal 1/2. 4/8, 5/8, 6/8, 7/8, and then 8/8. So 8/8 is the same thing as 4/4. It's 1 whole. And they wanted you to find just one of the pieces. So that would be right here, 1/8 right there. I would prefer you have the fraction bar on top of it, but you can see I'm kind of running out of room here. So if I were to do that, it would look like this. And I can keep my other numbers or other little pieces there. So I have, you can see right here, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 equal pieces. So 1/8 would fall right there. And it looks just like that. So for thirds, when we were working on making thirds and sixths in our classroom, That's a little bit harder. You have to figure out how to cut your whole into 3 equal pieces. And what we discovered in class is that 1/3, let me try to make this a little bit better here. 1/3, well, I'm trying to figure out how to do that for you. I'm thinking something similar to this. Maybe here, maybe here. Does that look like 3 equal pieces? That looks like a little too much. And that looks like not quite enough. But that looks pretty equal. That middle piece is a little too big. That looks pretty good. Remember, boys and girls, we're not going to be perfectly accurate. It's just not going to happen right now, but you need to eyeball it and use your spatial awareness to try to guesstimate, because I don't expect you to get a ruler out. 1/3, 2/3, 3/3. It's almost perfect. 1/3, 2/3, 3/3, remember, is 1 whole. It's like having the candy bar divided into 3 pieces and you're having all 3 of them. So here we have our 1/3, our 2/3, and our 3/3. They wanted you to find 2/3, so 2 out of the 3. So that would be this piece and this piece. 1/3 plus 1/3 is 2/3. So if you're in Mrs. Schmidt's class, I know for a fact you draw these little humps and you probably put like a dot right there on the number line. I really like the fraction bars. They're so much easier than the number line. Okay, so 5, 6. So they want you to cut your 1 whole into 6 equal pieces. I'm going to try to draw my fraction bar up here. So the first thing we're going to do is you can cut 6 in half. Think about that. So you can get your whole cut in half perfectly. So that's going to just leave you to do a little bit more work. But here is our half. And actually, if I kind of do this, yes, that is 1/2. Okay, so now we have 2 halves, 1/2 and 1/2. And we need to get each of these halves divided into thirds, because if we have 3/3 over here and 3/3 over here, we'll have 6 of them all together. So now we're going to take each half and cut it into thirds. So that would look something like that. That looks pretty darn good. Almost accurate, not quite, but good enough. There we go. That looks pretty good. So we have 1/3, or not 1/3, excuse me, 1/6, 1/6, 2/6, 3/6. So 3/6 is the same thing as 1/2. It's equivalent. 1/6, 2/6, 3/6, 4/6, 5/6, and 6/6, which is 1 whole. So 1/6 plus 1/6 plus 1/6 plus 1/6 plus 1/6 plus 1/6 will equal our whole. And they wanted you to shade in 5 of them, or find 5/6 on the number line. So here we go with our bar above it. And if you were doing that here, it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 right here. That's that. Now, when you're getting down into these, boys and girls, 1/6 and 2/3, and they want you to do that on the same number line, that's complicated. If I were you, I would be getting a separate piece of paper and I would draw 2 number lines, one on top of the other. So, and you know I like the fraction bars, so it would be a fraction bar and then the number line and then another fraction bar and then another number line. So I'm going to actually skip number 5 And I'm going to demonstrate what that would look like with number 6. So I'm going to actually skip this. And I'm going to actually skip number 7 too. You can work on that. But I'm going to model how you would do that with just this problem number 6, okay? So I'm actually going to use the number line above as well because I'm not going to go get a separate piece of paper right now. I don't even know if I have separate paper at home like I do at school. Not the kind that I would want to use anyway. Okay, so here I have my 2 fraction bars on top of my number line, right? The first one they wanted you to do was 1/3. So they want you to cut this into 3 equal pieces. Remember, the denominator, the bottom number, tells you how many pieces are in the whole altogether. So 3. So on this, we already did thirds up here, but if you look, if you tried to carry that down, like I taught you in class, carrying it down, it won't work. Hopefully you're figuring out this number line right here is a different size than this number line. And it's it starts over this way. So they may actually measure the same, but they're not lined up perfectly. And remember, to be able to do this, the size of the one hole has to be the same. So I'm going to just look at this bar, look at this line, and just try to cut it into 3 equal pieces by eyeballing it. And I may have to redo a little bit, but that looks pretty good right there, actually. So this is 1/3, this is 1/3, this is 1/3, and all together we have 3/3. 1/3, here's our 2/3, and this is 3/3. And they wanted you to find 1/3. So that would be right here, 1/3. And that's this bar right there. Now 5/8. So we are going to have to cut this whole thing into 8 equal pieces. So to do that, the first thing I'm thinking I'm going to do is to cut it in half. So 8 is an even number, so cutting it in half would be a good idea. And I remember doing this with our fraction bars. That looks pretty close. Now, we talked about in class, if we cut each half in half, we'll get 4 equal pieces. So we're getting closer. Now we have our fourths. 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4 is our whole. Now if we cut each fourth in half, we'll get 8 equal pieces. I'm going to number these after. And these are pretty accurate. They're not perfect. Remember, we started with half. Then we went to fourths, so 1/4. This was 2/4 or a half. And then 3/4, and then we said that this was 4/4. I should have labeled these as I went. Sorry, boys and girls. And so now we have 8ths, so this is 1/8. Think about what this would be. It's going to be equivalent to 1/4. So 1/8 plus 1/8. That's 2/8. And 2/8 is equivalent to 1/4. Here we have 3/8. And here we'll have 4/8. 1, 2, 3, 4/8. And I'm going to put that on top right here. 4/8. I'm going to put a box around it. So 4/8, 1/2, and 2/4 are all equivalent, and they all mean 1/2. 4/8, 5/8, 6/8. So 6/8 is the same thing as 3/4. 7/8. And then we have one whole, which is 8/8, and that's the same thing as 4/4. They wanted you to shade in or do jumps to find 5 of the 8s. So 1/8 plus 1/8 plus 1/8 plus 1/8 plus 1/8. I'm going to label all these 1/8s. But they wanted 5 of them. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then if you are doing jumps, it would look like this. 2, 3, 4, 5, and here's 5/8. So what you can see if you're actually comparing these, and I know this is not the lesson today, but if you're comparing these, I can tell that 1/3 is a lot smaller. It's a lot less than 5/8. So if I were comparing these, I could now easily look here and here, and I could tell that 1/3 is less than 5/8. Totally not our lesson, not on topic, but as usual, I have to make the connections where I see them and point it out to you. All right, so that's the first page of your lesson. And, oh, fractions greater than 1. Okay, so this is a little tricky. So on this number line, you have 1 whole, 2 wholes. So it's not like this whole thing is 1 whole. Here's your whole, and here's your next whole. So we're going to take our 1 whole, and we're going to divide it, just like the denominator says, we're going to divide it into 4 equal pieces. So we're going to find our half right there. Then we'll cut each half in half, fourths. So here's 2/4, and then 3/4, and then 4/4 is the same thing as a whole. Now we have to cut the second whole right here, this part, into 4 equal pieces as well, because you can tell up here they want you to find 5/4, and right here 4/4 is 1 whole. So 5/4 is going to be greater than 1 whole, greater than 1. So once again, we'll take our 1 whole from 1 to 2. That's 1 piece. We're going to cut it in half. We'll cut it in half again to get quarters. Okay, so here we have 4/4. So now we have 5/4. And here is 6/4, 7/4, and 8/4. And think about what 8 divided by 4 is. 8 divided by 4 is 2. That's what fractions are, boys and girls. I know we talked about that, but it's division. This is exactly what that means. 8 divided by 4 is 2. So 8/4 is 2 wholes. Now they wanted you to find 5/4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right there. 5/4. Okay. So on this one, you're doing thirds. You're going to cut each section into 3 equal pieces. So cover those up, boys and girls. Divide your 1 whole into 3 equal pieces. Cover that up. Do your next whole into 3 equal pieces. And then you'll do your last whole into 3 equal pieces. And then we'll go through and we'll label them. So I'm going to label them below. So we have 1/3. 2/3, 3/3 is 1 whole, 4/3, 5/3, 6/3. And if you think about what 6 divided by 3 is, it's 2, so that's accurate. 6/3, 7/3, 8/3, 9/3. 9/3. 9 divided by 3 is 3. So 9/3 is 3 wholes. Okay, so they wanted you to find 8/3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's right here. There it is. And I probably, if I was at school, I wouldn't be doing these jumps. I would probably be, I remember last year doing this. I actually colored in these sections here with a different color. So I went red, green, and I kind of made my own fraction bar by shading above. It just makes it more visually appealing, and it makes it a lot easier to understand. Okay, so on this one, they want you to find 5/1. I don't even know how to say that. But boys and girls, if the denominator is 1, what is 5 divided by 1? It's 5. So they want you to find 5 wholes. That's what this is. Anything with a denominator of 1 means that whatever the numerator is, that's how many holes there will be because it's not dividing it into any pieces. It's keeping it into the hole down here. So that's right here. And that's not 1/5. That's 5 holes. Each of these becomes a hole. Okay. And speaking of the hole, if you look up here at this hole right here, this, and then you look down here, if you think to yourself, is this hole the same as this hole? And for the purposes of this, I want you to just kind of see that no, they aren't, right? This hole is smaller than this hole. But in the scheme of things, they're not talking about a large pizza and a small pizza. They're, in the scheme of things, this hole right here would actually be the same thing as this hole. It's just they had to shrink it down to fit it onto the paper. Okay, so on this one, you're finding 8/6. That's going to be greater than a whole because the numerator is greater than the denominator. So you are going to cut each whole into 6 equal pieces. So to do that, you should cut each whole into thirds first. Okay, so there's 1 piece, 2 pieces, 3 equal pieces, and then cut each third in half, and now you'll have your 6. So I'm going to just draw a fraction bar for this top part. I'm not going to do this whole problem with you. You're going to have to move on and figure it out. But I'm going to cut that in half, and then I'm going to cut each half into thirds. So now I'll have 6 equal pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes. So 1/6, 2/6, 3/6, 4/6, 5/6, and 6/6. So you need to do this here and here. You need to divide each whole into 6 equal pieces. And once you've done that, you'll be able to find your 8/6. Okay? On this one, our denominator is 2. So these are halves. So you're going to cut each of these holes in half. That is very simple. You are capable of doing that. This is an easy one. So 1/2, 2 halves, 3 halves, 4 halves, and you're going to keep going until you can get to 6 halves. Okay? Then they want you to explain how you located the fraction for one of these. Okay? Pick one to describe how you found the fraction. Okay? So that's it for the first part of 7.3, Unit 7, Lesson 3. And I believe that the next page was for another day. All right. Bye, boys and girls.